Hi, this is Dr. John Grazel, and this is another in our series of synopsis of the class in peace building, post conflict reconstruction, and international development. And the focus today is on agriculture. And this is a very quick synopsis of one of the most important areas of concern in development. Now, why? Let's begin. Why is agriculture so important? Well, the bottom line to begin with is without bread, you might as well not try to make the next step. So it's obviously important just from a basic biological need. But also, agriculture has been the essence of our civilization since the very beginning of domestication and going back to Cain and Abel in the Bible, where agricultural civilization basically has been at the core of what we have understood as modern human culture in the last 9,000 years in much of the world. Uh, in this sense, it's fundamental to who we are and what we are. But in more specific sense, why is it so important for the development? Obviously, I said ag is key for food. Without food, you don't take the next step. But it's also a key element of income for a large percentage of the people that development is particularly concerned with, the poor, the rural, and women, who make up a large number of the poor farmers of the world. It's also concerned with health. It's not just about calories, it's about nutrition, and the nature of our agriculture can have a direct effect on to what extent we address questions of health as directly related to nutrition. And lastly, and very underappreciated, it is fundamental to the cultural integrity of many of the societies we work with. In many societies we work with, agricultural production and beliefs and practices around it have framed them. And it's not only developing countries. We have to think of our own country. You can't really understand American political history without looking into the whole phenomena of what's been called agrarian democracy in America. So our basic values, and many of our basic values, are directly tied to agriculture. And therefore, it shouldn't be surprising if agriculture changes, our values may change. Or conversely, our values may not change in some ways because they've been embedded into past agricultural ways of life that no longer are appropriate. Now, in discussing agriculture, I have to make a quick differentiation between poverty. Well, we often confuse poverty with real problem. Poverty means a little bit. And certainly, poverty is an exacerbation of many conditions. But there's a little bit too flippant excuse of saying poverty is a cause. You know, there are people in the world, spiritual people, who take pledges of poverty, and they neither starve nor find their lives unsatisfactory. There are poor families who maintain their family integrity and make it through poverty, and actually the poverty gives strength to the generations. So poverty is an exacerbator. What really is concerning us for agriculture is hunger, the actual lack of adequate calories and nutrition. Uh, then there's food security, which means you may have it, but can you depend upon it? And the last one, which is very important, is to what extent do you actually have bounty, which is very rarely discussed in development. But that means you not only have enough, but you are prospering in terms of what you hope to get out of agriculture. Now, to understand the role of agriculture, one really has to go into the history of agriculture. And just quickly, this is agriculture basically for our civilization and humankind begins with the domestication of plants and animals. With the domestication of plants, you can begin to get surplus, which actually begins to allow the formation of settlements and eventually urban civilization. From domestication, you get the beginning of technology's effects of irrigation, and you get your large irrigation civilizations in Egypt and in the Indus Valley and parts of South America. Then you had another tremendous period of agricultural change actually in the 1400s, 1500s with the plow and changes in the harness that literally harnessed increased energy for agriculture and allowed an increase in food production. You had another major shift at the end of the 19th century, particularly in America, with what was called scientific agriculture, where you start getting reapers, machines that allow an individual to farm vastly larger acreage than previously available. You then go into a breeding revolution, which actually begins at the beginning of the 20th century, but sees its epitome almost in the Green Revolution. And we're now really into another new age with what's called biotechnology, where we're really using genetically modified crops. Each of these great changes in agricultural technology have resulted in very substantial increases in the productivity of agriculture. And that gets back to the very interesting thing that we focus on agriculture because we say we have to meet the needs of growing population. Now, in the 19th century, Thomas Malthus, a famous economist, basically predicted that the world was going to starve because agricultural production couldn't keep up with population. It hasn't proven that way. We haven't kept up with it. In fact, despite, and this is somewhat controversial, despite what people claim, productivity is no longer a problem now in agriculture. It will be a problem. We're going to have another doubling of population, so we do have to be more productive. And our present world food stocks actually are quite limited. But it's not because we're not producing enough food now. We are producing more than enough food to feed everybody in the world now. The problem is not production. The problem is access to food and security to food and the quality of food. Now, how did we get there? Well, that is the story of one of the most successful things that ever happened in international development, the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution, which is a term that was coined in 1968 by USAID, actually was an incredible package, a package of seeds, of fertilizer, of the use of water, of agricultural credit, of access to market, that together greatly increased the productivity of key crops, particularly rice, basically by making the edible part of the plant far more productive than other parts of the plant. But with that came what we call a wicked problem, because it came the need for money and credit, which led people into debt, the increased risk that came from monocropping, effects of environment, of excess use of water and the use of pesticides, and actually a degradation in many cases of the quality of the product itself in terms of at least taste and in some case of nutrition. It also had social effects. It led to larger scale farming, damage to many small farmers who couldn't take the risk of loss during a bad year and couldn't pay it back. That resulted in social displacement of populations around the world, increases in large-scale monocropping corporate pharma, increased globalization where food from one area moves to the other area, which can be good at times of shortages, but can also result actually in decreasing the price of food in local areas and actually having a negative effect on the ability of local farmers to make a living. So where does it leave us now? Well, what I propose is we're actually into a new type of agricultural revolution, and it's not just about biotechnology. It's what I call principled agriculture. People actually, if you look around the world, are beginning to look at agriculture in terms of principles of stewardship, principles of sustainability, principle of equity of distribution, balanced productivity, meaning how does agriculture affect not only all resources but all our needs for a beautiful rural environment as well as our need of food for that environment. The principle of quality and the principle of actually nurturing not only the land and the plants but our own souls through engaging in productive agricultural activities. And it's encouraged not only in rural areas, it's encouraged in urban areas as well. So I believe we actually are going to enter a new period of agriculture that we have to work together on throughout the world to reestablish its key role in our lives, not only biologically, but spiritually. And that's really going to be the next challenge for international development. And it's going to require a major change in mentality on the part of all of us today.